Hi. Do you have a job interview coming up this week? Are you anxious and feeling overwhelmed, wondering how it will go? What is the competition like? Will your responses be good enough? If you were able to take a time out and a deep breath, you may begin to relax and think about what you can do to relieve your anxiety. For instance, get a good night's sleep the night before. Prepare by doing a couple of mock interviews. Have a positive attitude and give it your best shot. Thoughts impact emotions. Good evening and welcome. First, I'd like to thank you all for joining this evening and to let you know that I invite your questions, comments, and you hear something that resonates with you, I'd like your feedback on that as well. And once again, hello and welcome to the webinar Thoughts Impact Emotions. I am Karren Henderson, owner and CEO of EAs in the C-Suite. We work to empower women to level up their performance without increasing stress. It is important to strengthen soft skills. And you can do that by developing a learning mindset. And it also can be a little uncomfortable. Engage in a little self-reflection to determine just what areas you need to work on. So tonight, we're talking about thoughts and how they impact our emotions. And the point of the matter is, sometimes if we are able to control those emotions, we can not act in a way that we may, be sorry about, or in a way that can be harmful to ourselves or others, in a way that negatively impacts your position in the workplace or in relationships. So sometimes we need to just stop and just take a breath. We all have a lot of things on our minds. We have the job, what's happening in the workplace, and an EA in the C-suite. There are things that are coming at her all the time. So it's about prioritizing, and then priorities have to change depending on something that may have happened during the day. You have different individuals coming, so it's like several bosses, if you will. So yes, it can get overwhelming, and it can definitely affect how we continue to react in terms of our emotions. So what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence, also referred to as EQ, is the ability to be self-aware of and manage emotions and relations. A pivotal factor in your personal and professional success, as they say. IQ will get you in the door. EQ will give you longevity. So your ability to connect with others and manage the emotions of yourself and others will determine how successful you are in life. So there are 4 pillars of EQ. Self-awareness, the ability to know yourself and understand your feelings. Self-management, emotional self-control, self-awareness, empathy, or the ability to form connections with others. Understanding and acknowledging others' emotions. And finally, relationship management, like being an inspirational leader, a mentor, role model, or an authority figure. So, once again, do you struggle in the workplace? Many times it was just understood. Karren will handle that, or Karren's a good one to take care of this. And then I begin to get various feedback and comments from my execs, peers, and colleagues. What an excellent job I did putting a particular event together, how I paid attention to a particular detail. And one day a gentleman mentioned to me how my exec said he never returned from his travels to problems in the office. And I thought to myself, wow, he never said that to me. Also, I never ask. And one of the things we want to do so that we know what? We know where we stand. We know how we're perceived. We know areas that we need to strengthen. Because as I said, things are happening all the time. You have a home life. You have relationships. You have a work life. You have aspirations and desires. And sometimes those things collide as to what can you handle first, or how can you handle this. Having to deal with all of these things do in fact affect our emotions and behavior. And in order to be mindful of it, we need to practice doing little things that will aid in self-reflection. Okay, let me take a look at this, or let me think how I can handle that differently. And we always want to ask how we're doing, or ask someone how they feel, because what you're doing is coming from your own inner motivation. How it's being received, well, that's another story. So, there are 3 keys to help you monitor how your thoughts impact emotions. You want to really understand and embrace the importance of emotional intelligence. And the thing about it is, it's a skill. It's a skill that can be acquired and improved. And in the 20th century, in this 21st century, soft skills or emotional intelligence is one of the most sought after areas that companies are looking for. They want people to work together. They want people to have empathy. It's about team building. It also makes for a better leader. And one of the things they do, a lot more companies are doing, are these various assessments. They're doing these assessments which you can take yourself to learn more about yourself, how you receive information, what environments that are more complementary to your work style and your personality. Those things are very important, and often we're not looked at in a way that would strengthen the company, would build a better company. So, thoughts that impact emotions, I'll just go over. Focus on strategic thinking. Very important. If you're focused on strategic thinking, then you're not acting just because you feel a certain way. You're thinking, okay? That is key. You're adjusting your thoughts. You're controlling if you have to step back from the situation. You want to focus strategically on your reaction, on your behavior, on your interaction. All very important. You also want to recognize the events or people that impact your thoughts. That's very important as well, because, we all carry around a history inside of us. Our orientation, environment that we have come up in, what kind of environment we had. Was it a 2-parent home? Was it a 1-parent home? Did we have siblings? Was there a constant struggle? Did we go to college? All of these things play a role in how we're feeling, how we react. baggage, if you will, that we may carry from these different places, from our home life, from growing up, from our relationship, from raising children. Okay, all of those things impact our thoughts. And then when we go out in the workplace, well, depending on what's going on, you may carry something to work that was upsetting from your home life, and something triggers you in the workplace, and there you have it. Your emotions have you acting in a way that's inappropriate in the workplace, okay? So I'll share a story. Early on in my career, working very closely with my exec, building a new department in the university, our mission was to forge a partnership with corporate leaders in the industry, basically to educate our students by providing both the theory. So our industry leaders, they would inform us of what was needed out there, what they were looking for in the industry, and couple that with what they were being taught in the classroom. So what actually happens in the real world, that would give a more rounded and complete education. So this day, some of the corporate leaders are visiting, and one asked for a cup of coffee. My coworker became quite indignant and said that was not her job. I thought, they're a guest here, and we would like their buy-in to mentor our students, offer internships, and hopefully jobs upon graduation. What's the big deal to serve a cup of coffee to a visitor? They're now able to leave not only thinking what a great program we have, but the staff is hospitable as well. But the most important thing to remember is to keep the end goal in mind, build relationships, and be socially adaptable. So I ask you, do you have some emotional baggage? What are you carrying around? Do you need to remove some of that from your luggage? How do you control your thoughts? So now, for the $64,000 question. What's your emotional baggage? Is it inner criticism, stress and worry, your head and your heart? Not realizing I internalized my stress. I was promoted suddenly. No formal preparation for the position. It just happened. I was pleased but overwhelmed. But I can handle it, I kept telling myself. I had the support of my peers from other departments. I remember one day going to a senior administrator's office to ask a question, and she said, I was waiting on you to stop by. She was waiting to help me. At any rate, learning and doing this job was causing tremendous stress. But I felt like as long as I was handling it, all was well. And then I started to break out. And it's summertime, so I'm thinking a heat rash. I have vacation in a month. I'll go to the doctor's while I'm on vacation. Well, as I was entering the doctor's examining room, he said, have you been under a lot of stress lately? And I thought to myself, how did he know? Well, I learned. I was prescribed 3 things that day. They wanted to do extensive blood work, give me a tranquilizer. Okay, it wasn't called a tranquilizer. I think it was Valium. And that I should go into counseling. I immediately grabbed counseling. Ditched the blood work, ditched the the blood work and the Valium. And I went to counseling. It was the best thing I could have done. It was excellent. It was just what I needed. No pun intended, just what the doctor ordered. So it enabled me to let go of some emotional baggage. No matter where it exists, if you have it, Recognize what triggers it. What thoughts crop up that cause you to react in a certain way? I remember once I was having difficulty locating a document or file to give to a student, and it was taking time. And the faculty member spoke to me in a very unpleasant tone and embarrassed me in front of a student. I immediately snapped back. You don't have to treat me as if I'm incompetent. I was terrified. I had just lost my job. Nothing like that outburst had ever occurred before. What will I do? I thought to myself, what's going to happen? She left my office and returned to her office. She emailed me and asked me to come to her office after lunch. Needless to say, I didn't eat any lunch. I could not eat. So I go into her office after lunch and she said, we will act like this never took place. And I was so relieved. But it taught me a lesson. It enlightened me. It caused self-reflection. Self-awareness involves monitoring your stress, thoughts, and emotions. And that's what we have to do. Why are we acting in this way? Okay, I have a big budget meeting tomorrow. Am I prepared? Do I have everything all together? Or I have that meeting tomorrow and my kid gets sick and I'm up half the night with him or her. It's disturbing my sleep. It's making me irritable. I don't know if I'll be able to go into work the next day for the big meeting because my child is ill. What can I do? It also has an effect on your personal development. Once you recognize that these thoughts are counterproductive to your growth, once you recognize and accept having that learning mindset, you can begin to correct. Correct through training, correct through coaching, correct through courses, correct through assessments, finding out more about you, conditions that make your environment better, put you more in control of your feelings. Because things can happen. Life can get out of control. If you are unaware of how and under what circumstances, then you're likely to act out of control. That's where your strategic thinking comes in. And if you're thinking that way, you're going to have a more calm, rational thought process that will help you keep emotions in check. This is so very important. So, one of the things that we can also think about are the steps that we can take to control our emotions. Let's look at the steps. So we talked about don't react right away. Pause, breathe. Put some space between the thought and the emotion. You'll be surprised how calming this simple exercise can be. The other thing is ask for divine guidance. Where you're stressing over an upcoming interview, where you're stressing over that budgetary meeting, where you have 8 or 9 people and fires to put out, and it's not even noon. Take a breath. Pause. And then begin to strategically think, focus, and put together in a rational way what you can put together, what you can respond to, what you can resolve, what you can delegate. And then you want to always find a healthy outlet. Your emotions should never be bottled up. call or go see someone you trust to discuss with them what happened, or what may be on your mind. Hearing an opinion other than your own broadens your awareness. Keep a journal to transfer your emotions from your inner self to paper. All of these are ways that will help you control your thoughts, control your emotions, and have a more positive output. Now you want to replace those thoughts. Force out the negative and replace it with a different one. Imagine, for instance, an ideal resolution to your problem playing out, and smile. Yeah, you can do that. And it gives you different energy. You've released what is bottling up or tensing you for something more pleasant. You visualize it and you literally begin to feel better right in the moment. The other thing you want to do is step out of that mindset and think. Think of the bigger picture. What are you aiming for? Whether good or bad, everything happens in our lives serves a higher purpose. Wisdom means being able to see past the moment, discern the greater meaning. And that is so important. Like the example I shared with you about the industry leaders coming in and the coworker getting really upset about fixing a cup of coffee. Well, the big picture is we want the industry leaders to contribute to our program, both via their resources and their money. We want them to mentor our students and hire our students. We certainly don't want to create an environment where they're uncomfortable when they come to visit. And then you want to forgive your emotional triggers. Emotional triggers may come from people who are close to you, or they may come from you, or all of the things we just talked about. But you want to be able to forgive yourself. I mentioned at the beginning of this, or in one of the promos for the webinar, about doing something that is so unsettling to you. You're talking to yourself, how could I be so stupid? Oh, why did I do that? And then every time that activity or exactly what happened, the error that you made, every time it crosses your mind, it's like you take a deep breath. You're so upset. You're so outdone that you did this thing that it's hard to remove from your brain. Well, you gotta let it go. Forgive yourself. Recognize it. You reflected upon it. What can you do to correct it? You want to have more control. Take that breath, pause, and then come up with a workable solution. And you can do it. And in going through that process, you control the emotions. You replace that thought with a more positive thought that will reflect in your emotional output. So, what have we learned? We learned what emotional intelligence is and the 4 pillars of emotional intelligence, how important it is to our personal and professional development and success, the importance of focusing on strategic thinking, and also it's important to recognize who or what pushes your buttons and drives you crazy. So we want to keep that in mind. And the thoughts that impact our emotions can be replaced with thoughts that have better success rates for us. So, that is the end of our webinar this evening. I thank you so much for being here.